I'm Goya la golondrina. I live in my comfortable nest under a portal on Camino del Pueblo in Bernalillo, Nuevo Mexico. I enjoy flying all over our beautiful landscape where I can see the Rio Grande, the Sandia Mountains, and the people who call this place home. Golondrinas have lived in the area for many years, even before people came here. I am here to guide you through 3 videos where we will discuss storytelling, food, and traditions. The videos are designed to guide you through the activity packet, and you will hear both Spanish and English. Follow along on your activity sheets. In this video, we will be discussing traditional storytelling. Getting started, think about the stories that you have heard as a child. Piensa sobre los cuentos y historias que te contaban cuando eras niño y niña. Now look at your activity sheet and complete questions A, B, and C under the Getting Started section. You can pause the video now and complete this section. When you are finished, press play to resume. Welcome back! Before radio, television, and social media, we would frequently tell historias o cuentos. Nuevo Mexicanos would tell stories while working, eating dinner, making food, sitting around a fire, and during family visits as a way of teaching. Many of these stories were passed down by word of mouth from one generation to the next. When we tell stories by word of mouth, they form a part of the oral tradition. Another way of telling stories is by writing them down in books. This is the written tradition. If your parents or family read stories to you as a child, that was part of the written tradition. Now that you know what the oral and written traditions are, did the stories you write about in your activity packet form part of the oral tradition, the written tradition, or both? Explain. Los cuentos e historias que mencionaste arriba forman parte de la tradición oral o escrita o de las dos. Explica. You can pause the video now and complete the Think About It section. When you are finished, press play to resume. Now we will look at 2 stories from Bernalillo that have been preserved in recordings and books. These stories come from both the oral and written traditions. 2 examples that we will use are from a book called Bernalillo, Yesterday's Sunshine, Today's Shadows by Nazario Garcia. I have left my nest to fly to the home of an elder named Eustaquio to ask him to tell you the story called The Beans Flew All Over the Place. Oh, look! He is working on his garden. Eustaquio, can you tell us the story about the beans?
The beans flew all over the place. I believe that my wife is one of the best cooks you'll find in town because everywhere she goes, she ends up cooking beans and red or green chili. Everything she cooks comes out so good because she does it the old-fashioned way, cooked right and done right. I remember the first time I cooked beans out in the country. My father and I went to plant the beans with Don Maclavio. We went over to the other side of the ravine where Don Maclavio had been given some land. We had to remove all the brush, and then my father said to me, "Son, start the beans cooking for me." I don't know that you had to clean them, take out all the little tiny pebbles or the little mud balls, and soak them in water. and then put them in a can on top of the fire. He didn't tell me I had to punch tiny holes in the lid to the can. Well, I put the beans in the can and boom! The beans flew all over the place. Well, what happened? Well, you told me to start the beans, so I filled them with water and all, but you didn't punch little holes in the lid. I didn't tell him that I didn't know anything about cooking beans, but what an explosion. The beans flew all over the place. But the next time that I cleaned beans, I put them in water, made little holes all over the lid, and they didn't blow up. The water has to boil. It has to be boiling all the time. And when you add water again to the beans, it has to be hot. Because if you add cold water, the beans will turn black, hard, and very dark. Well, I don't know. It seems to me that it's always good for parents to teach the sons about responsibility at home as well as outside the home. Make them responsible. And as for the girls, teach them to be like my wife.
Now that you have heard Don Eustaquio's story, answer the questions A, B, C, and D in the practice section that are associated with Eustaquio Salas. You can pause the video now. When you are finished, press play to resume. Now I will fly to Doña Cirilia's house in the bosque. She is feeding her chickens. Doña Cirilia, can you tell us about games you played as a child?
Since people were so poor, we didn't have toys. We played baseball. At times we'd find an old bat, an old board, and that's what we used to play baseball. All the neighbors got together. We also had those stilts, as they were called. When we were little girls, I remember celebrating the month of Maria, May. We would fetch a white piece of cloth and don it on our head with bobby pins. Then we picked tiny flowers that we found outdoors and put up tiny altars. We pretended to honor the month of Maria. For the fiestas, we played matachines, jacks, hopscotch, and all those games which children nowadays don't play. You played outside in the dirt, digging tiny holes. We'd dig tiny trenches, and that's where we drove our little homemade cars. You tie a string to them, pull them, and play until we were famished. I don't recall saying to my mother, "Are beans all we're going to eat?" We'd go in the house, and there would be a stack of tortillas this high that Mother had made. She would cook rice pudding with raisins and custard pudding, tortillas. Sweet bread was rarely missing. We'd stuff ourselves and go back out to play in the yard, but happy. We passed the time playing. Of course we fought from time to time. Over the toys, the tiny cars, or because someone wiped out your little trench. Or whatever. But then, we go on playing. We were so happy. Today's kids have much more, because you go to somebody's house and kids have so many toys they don't know what to do with them. And those kids aren't happy. They have television, VCRs, everything. But the fault rests with the mother and father because they both work. Then when they go shopping, they buy them this toy or that toy. What are they doing? Buying the kids love. All because the mother works to pay for the things they owe, the cars they owe. That's how they reward the children, by buying them toys in exchange for love. I am not embarrassed to say it, and I do so with pride, because there were 10 of us in my family, 8 offspring, and my father and mother. There wasn't a single night that we went to bed hungry, which, unlike today, there's lots of food and all, and still there are children going hungry. What with all of these fast foods? Well, they eat and they're full for a short time, and a little while later, they're hungry all over again. We were very poor, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I feel proud, very proud, because being poor is not anything to be ashamed of. I have a niece who comes here, She just turned 2, and they bring her toys. Do you think for one moment she's going to play with them? I have small plastic bottles that lotion came in, and that's what she likes to play with. She doesn't even pay attention to her toys. She puts her toys one side, and all day long she plays with my little bottles or whatever little knick-knack I give her. And that little girl doesn't pester. At her house, she's got toys coming out of her ears, and she doesn't play with them. We didn't have any of that stuff, but we'd get tin cans and smash them to fit the shoes, and there we were pretending to walk on high heels. We found ways to play. We were so happy playing, so beautiful. Good gracious, how times have changed.
Now that you have heard Doña Cirilia's story, answer the questions A, B, and C in the practice section that is associated with Cirilia Salas. You can pause the video now. When you are finished, press play to resume. It has been a long day. My wings are tired. Before I head back to my nest, I will leave you with some additional work to do after this video finishes. Now that you have heard 2 local stories, ask a relative or older adult to tell you a story from Más Antes, long ago. You can record it as a video or sound recording on most phones with their permission. Write it down or draw it. Submit your recording, writing, or art to the museum via email, and we will post it to Facebook. Your family could even win a prize. For more details, look at the Con Familia, with family, section of the activity sheet. Buenas noches.